Hello and welcome to the Bears Insider Podcast. I'm Michael Dwojak here with the Northwest Herald's Joe Aguilar as we are joining you here Tuesday afternoon. We're going to break down the Bears 2025 draft class. Needless to say, there's some surprises, some things that I'm sure we want to break down. I've seen a lot of, big hot topics, big takes over the past few days since the draft has ended. So we'll break everything down for you folks as we go over who they drafted, what do we like, what do we not like, and where they kind of go on from here. But before we do that, let's just wanted to give you a quick reminder that you can subscribe to our podcast wherever they're available, and make sure you like us on YouTube. That's the best way to support us. That's the best way to kind of know when we're going to be going live. I know this is Tuesday at 1, so a little bit different for you folks than our usual Monday and Friday, but wanted to give you folks a good opportunity just to kind of talk about what the Bears did over the weekend and what that kind of means moving forward here as we progress slowly but surely through this offseason and the NFL continues its hold over our lives as we get ready for rookie minicamp, OTAs, minicamp, schedule release, and all that sort of stuff. But Joe, I'm going to bring you in here, and why don't we start things off with the pretty basic way of starting things off. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about the players that the Bears selected this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I love to tell you, like, I've heard of all these guys, and I could give you 8 paragraphs on each guy,
Sure.
but I can't. Other than Luther Burden, the third that went at 39 overall, and I got to give you props because when we last talked, I think that was after round one, and we're like, "What do you see in round two?" And you mentioned wide receiver, and I'm thinking, no wide receiver. We got enough guys who can catch the football, unless you absolutely love someone. And I guess they did because, according to the Bears, I mean, they had him, it was a kind of a no brainer as the most skilled guy, highest ranked guy on their board at 39 overall. And they went with him. But that shocked me. And then the rest of the draft, I mean, you figured. I was a little disappointed. I thought they would get an edge guy at some point. Mike Green, my guy, he was sitting there at 41, even at 39 certainly, and they passed him. Pardon my dog. If the Bears played with the ferocity of my 6-pound dog, the Bears will win the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But they didn't get an edge guy, but they got a guard, they got a tackle, they got Shamar Turner, and hopefully he's good. But it's kind of hard to, it's so hard to give grades. So many people want to give grades on a draft. We really don't know until at least 3 years down the road. If you look back at Ryan Pohl's first draft from 2022 would have been 22 or 23, 22, Kyler Gordon. Right. Now we can kind of get a little better feel for how that draft went. But for now, it's really like, okay, I'm going to trust Ben Johnson. I think this is more of a Ben Johnson draft than it is a Ryan Poles draft, even though, Ryan Poles, it's his draft and it's got to be a good one. Until those guys, in particular, Ben Johnson, give us enough reason to say, I don't trust you anymore.
Yeah, I want to hit on that. Just wanted to go through the guys that they did draft. Obviously, Colston Loveland was their first round pick in Michigan at a tight end out of Michigan. Luther Burden the third, wide receiver from Missouri and East St. Louis. Ozzie Trapilo is an offensive lineman from Boston College, and Shamar Turner is a defensive tackle from Texas A&M. All three of those guys were taken in the second round. Then they went with the linebacker with Ruben Hippolyte the second in the fourth round out of Maryland. Za Frazier out of UTSA, a cornerback in the fifth round. Luke Newman, offensive lineman out of Michigan State in the sixth round. And then they finally got their running back, Kyle Monadingi, in the seventh round out of Rutgers. And I want to hit on this because I think we talked about this a little bit on Friday after the first round. Being like, okay, like this kind of feels like a Ben Johnson influence. You take the best tight end, a good offensive playmaker. Okay, cool. And then you saw the second round and, Luther Burden the third. Then you got, Ozzie Trapilo. And then you finally got your defensive guy in Shamar Turner. I think that's one of the biggest things I've kind of taken out of this draft is for all the talk about Is Ben Johnson going to be influential? Is Brian Poles going to like working with him? That very clearly was overblown heading into this thing. They are obviously paying Ben Johnson a lot of money to be the head coach, but they are also taking his advice on a lot of players. And I think you saw that even with the top three guys, you got a huge versatile playmaker in Luther Burden the third, and then you quite literally got a huge offensive tackle that the Bears are hoping can really make an impact. You've seen pretty quickly, Joe, Ben Johnson's involved in this, and he's respectful of Ryan Poles' process, Ian Cunningham's process. He's not like coming in and saying it's my way or the highway. But the Bears personnel, like people, are listening to what Ben Johnson wants on his team.
Yeah, and I think this draft would look completely different as far as personnel had Matt Eberflus still been the head coach of this football team, right? So
Right.
they got more. I mean, the Bears have more weapons than the Browns have quarterbacks, I guess. You look at it that way, you know?
Yeah.
So again, now you just have to trust they know what they're doing because they neglected. Again, I really thought they could grab. They needed to grab a safety. Now there's going to be some veteran guys. There are always guys who get cut. There's some.
Sure.
There's really not too many. I've been looking at like the available, best available free agents. Veteran players on the market. There's really no safety. I mean, Justin Simmons is still available. I don't know if you want to bring in a guy who's going to compete with Jaquan Brister or Byard, but I think they need a depth guy there. They got another corner. I like the length of the corner that Zay Frazier. 6'3". He's a ball hawking guy. Had a really good year at Texas San Antonio. I was like, after that second round, I'm like, let's not get a bunch of 5'7" corners in here. Going to be special teams guys or nickel guys. So maybe he's a guy who's got some upside. But I look at it this way, Michael. I think if you're going to be critical, and again, we can't be critical now. It's just we got to see these guys on the field. I mean, Colston Loveland could be an all-pro guy right away, or the shoulder might still be bothering him. He gets behind the 8 ball right away, and he's not ready, and he has a season where he's not really productive. There's so much to be seen with all these guys, but I think it will be fair going forward, whether it's this year or again, it normally takes about 3 years to grade a draft. Is they traded out of 41. So in theory, you can look back, I think, in the future and say, look at everyone who went after 41 and then compare them to Ozzie Trapillo, who the Bears took at 56 when they traded out. And then they got the third, second rounder in Shamar Turner. And then maybe let's stack up. Would you take Trapillo and Turner over this guy or this guy that you even as a fan that maybe you were potentially eyeing? I think that's fair going forward because after a while they just kept trading back. And from just a fan perspective, I was like, for crying out loud, pick somebody. I mean, why settle for 5 more offensive linemen going, whether they're tackles or guards or even a swing guy or a center, as opposed to just picking someone you like. So I think going forward, remember, pick 41 from this draft, all the guys taken after that, and then stack them up against who the Bears picked actually with their 2 second rounders and, the 4th, the 2 5ths, and the 7th.
Yeah, I think it became pretty clear that, and Ryan Poles kind of talked about this Saturday night, the Bears were out of a lot of runs here, it seems like. The Bears were it didn't seem like it really worked out for them, being in the runs. Like they just missed out on Trayvon Henderson, obviously by 1 pick in the second round. And it became clear that the Bears didn't rank everyone else at the same height. So they just decided to trade down. And you saw that again later in the draft, right in the 4th round. They just missed out on some of their guys in the running back room, and then they just traded down. So I want to talk to you about this because it became very clear that the Bears were staying to their draft board. They weren't going to budge off their draft board. And it became also very clear that they were doing best player available as opposed to going for specific need. And I'm curious to get your standpoint on that, where, I feel like you're at best player available when you're going through a rebuild, right? Like you're starting a new rebuild. You're just like, listen, we're a few years away. Like we maybe don't need to, like, let's just get whoever we can at this point, right? And it was interesting to me that they went with best player available in this draft because obviously, we talked about the needs, the edge. You need to fix the edge, offensive tackle. You got to fix that running back room. You got to fix that safety. You want to build toward the future there, and then obviously you can reinforce a lot of stuff on Saturday in the 4th and through the seventh round. But I thought it was really interesting that they continued with the best player available model, going with the draft. What were your thoughts about them using that model instead of maybe targeting specific position groups?
You know what, you were breaking up there, Michael, and I missed about the last 30 seconds of what you were saying there.
Oh, I was just asking you, what are your thoughts about Bears doing best player available as opposed to, just, going for positions?
Yeah, I mean, in a way they got a tackle, right? They got a guard, the Luke Newman kid, but in the fifth round. They got a running back, and then everything is funny because Kyle Monangai, everything I read about him from fans that you watch him tape of him, he looks pretty good. But realistically, what are you expecting out of a seventh rounder? Now, that said, he doesn't have to be the heir apparent to DeAndre Swift. I don't even the Bears
Sure.
are going to say that, but they just need a guy who brings something different to the table than DeAndre Swift. And who knows, Mike, I've heard rumors about Nick Chubb possibly signing with the Bears.
Yeah,
Health will be the whole issue with Nick Chubb because, as we know, before the really nasty looking knee injury a couple of years ago, I
sure.
mean, he was on a Hall of Fame track. I mean, he was that good with the Browns. So maybe they still bring in some other guys, but I thought they needed not getting a safety in this draft is going to make the difference between them making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. But I still need to see them be able to get to the quarterback more. I'm not sure if Io Odengbo is going to be the guy. I like the idea of. I think they've got some good depth now at inside with Dexter and big Andrew Billings, and now Turner. I think is it safe to say that Zach Pickens is not going to be on this football team anymore? We might be able to label him a bust. So I don't know. I mean, the people seem to like the Burden pick. I'm just not as sold because even if he better be really good. I mean, because if he's just a nice complementary piece to DJ Moore and Odunze and Loveland and or Komet, that's not good enough for a second round pick. I mean, for a basically guy who's going to be, you're looking at projected to be your third wide receiver. So as much as, the skills, he's the guy's dripping with skills and run after catch ability. He better be really good because I don't want to see like a 40 catch season from him. But what if they make the playoffs? No one's going to care about your individual numbers. It's just that you won and you're a complimentary piece. But I would hope the guys better be really good. But again, there's only one football, right? So you're looking at a lot of guys. Even Loveland, even if he comes in healthy, you're not picking a tight end at 10 because he's a real good blocker. He needs to produce catches and touchdowns. And if he's just going to be a 50 catch guy with 3 touchdowns, that's not good enough for 10. So I didn't have a problem with the pick. It really would have been interesting, like you would mock them picking Kelvin Banks had he been there, but the Saints took him one spot ahead. So at that point, once you got through, as we talked about the other day, the top 3 tackles were off the board. I don't know. Loveland was certainly a guy who seemed to be rising on a lot of draft boards and not just the Bears.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like that. A lot of guys were interested in Loveland, and even like Burden. Burden kind of seemed to be a surprise that he was in the second round. He, after the first round, he posted on Instagram that he was back, training at Missouri's campus, and we actually asked him like, who did you go train out for? He's like, oh, I just went with my girlfriend. And we were like, oh, like, did you did she throw to you? He was like, no, she just put in the jugs and he was working. But, that annoyed him. He thought he was a first round pick, right? And that obviously is, again, something that I feel like that the Bears are liking, right? Like you see this in Ben Johnson, guys who are a little pissed off, guys who are like, I should have been a first round pick. I am an elite athlete. And you're seeing a lot of that in these type of guys. Rick chiming in saying that Burden is going to be a Swiss Army knife. I can definitely see that for his first season, especially if, you got DJ and Rome on the outside. I think, a lot of people talked about, how his numbers kind of went down last year with Missouri when he played him more in the slot. And I think that was more of a Missouri thing than I think it was the Luther Burden thing. But you saw, again, like Luther Burden playing in the slot, he got a lot of yak. I was trying to look it up online. I don't think there's like a direct like number of how much yak he had, but listen, you got the ball to him and he got at least 10 yards, 11 yards every time he was going. And that seems to be the thing that they're trying to do here, right? Like they're trying to make things as easy as possible for Caleb. Just get the ball out as quickly as possible. Maybe the offensive line might take some time, and just get it to your playmakers. And at this point, the Bears have like I've heard this comparison before. The Bears basically have a basketball team of like playmakers, right? You got height, you got width, you got speed, you got a lot of different things, and now it's just about getting them the ball.
Yeah, you might see like in hockey, you have line shifts, right? They've got so many weapons. I think that's going to be good. Remember, Ben Johnson likes to say, "We want to have the same thing look different." Is that how I'm
Yeah,
paraphrasing there?
the idea.
But
Yeah,
right, you could have so many different combinations. Whether you go with 3 wide receivers, 2 wide receivers, 1 wide receiver, 2 running backs, because the versatility of a lot of these guys, including Loveland, who could, again, I could see him lined up wide as a wide receiver, inside, in your traditional tight end stance on the line of scrimmage. So there's a lot of different packages I think we'll see, and I think that would be the point of it all. That said, have you ever met a wide receiver who didn't think he should get the ball on every snap? I mean, they're all prima donna, not prima donnas, but they all want the football all the time, and I get it. That's part of what drives them to be great, right? But it's going to be hard just to say, "Hey, man, you had 3 catches, but man, you blocked 7 times. That were the fantastic A+ blocks." Because any receiver from DJ Moore to Roma Dunze to Luther Burns, they say, "But I want the football." So we'll see. I mean, Ben Johnson talks a good game, and I have no reason to say he's a phony or it's not going to work, and he's in for a rude awakening. So I'm just excited, and I can't wait for football to get here in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. And you mentioned that both Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson. I don't know why that name escaped my mind. But both of them were asked, "You got a lot of playmakers here. There's one football. How are you going to get that to everybody?" And this kind of goes to Rick's comment that he had. Seems like guys are going to have to earn their jobs, which is a nice change. Listen, Ben Johnson, when he was asked about that, he said, like, there's no depth chart right now at this point for the Bears, and there's no depth chart. Like, you need to earn your own. You need to be blocking on every single play. And he kind of got to the sense of, I forget whether it was him or Ben Johnson or Ryan Poles, but essentially it was like they're going to be looking at everything. If you're not blocking on every single play, you're not getting the ball. And that became very clear to me, at least, where this is really just going to be a different mindset, something that we haven't seen in a while, where it's just like, guys, listen, last year kept asking to be getting held accountable. That's happening right now. Guys are being held accountable. If you're not blocking, you're not going to get the ball. And I think that's going to be the major thing, where it's like Ben Johnson was kind of like, yeah, we dialed it up a little bit for a couple guys. Is that for DJ Moore? Is that for Cole Kmet? I don't think he was specifically, calling out guys, but I think he was basically saying, listen, you haven't earned anything yet. Like, you could be a 6-year vet, you could be a 2-year player, you could be a rookie. If you're not doing things the way we want things to be done, that's not going to be happening. And it's kind of refreshing. You kind of see that, where you're just kind of like, guys seem to like they're going to be held accountable, and if they're not, I don't think they're going to get the ball. And I think that kind of leads to a more complete product, right? If you have everyone blocking, if you have everyone doing their assignments, it's going to work much better than kind of what you saw last year.
Yeah, and I think this will really another area where he's going to earn his stripes as a head coach, because ultimately now he has to deal with the egos and guys who are, again, they're going to want the football. And some guys like old school 85 Bears Dennis McKinnon, who probably enjoyed blocking and beating the crap out of a linebacker more than catching a pass sometimes. That's going to be hard, because maybe they're not all going to be on the same page. Like, hey, it all sounds good, but you're going to have to manage different personalities here and keeping everybody happy. And I'd hate to say, like, well, DJ Moore, you didn't buy in, so you're going to get targeted 2 times this week. Is that really a good idea? you want the ball in DJ Moore's hands. I don't think DJ Moore has anything to prove. I think he's proven enough that he's one of the better wide receivers we've seen in Chicago in the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years, fair to say.
Sure.
He's
Yeah.
legit. So this will be good. If they all buy in, okay. But I just wonder how easy that will be, because it sounds good, but I'll believe it when I see it, I guess. I mean, that's just the Chicago cynic in me.
Well,
Chicago sports fan cynic.
no, I don't blame you. It just would be that would be such an interesting thing for how much, ad nauseum, at least last year, we kept hearing, hold us accountable, like do this, like we need to
Mhm.
be held accountable, do this. And then you bring in a coach who's doing that. Like, you can't have it both ways, right? Like you either have to be held accountable and you like that, or you don't like that and you
Yeah.
can't, talk about it all year. So it'll be interesting, like you said, how they're going to respond to it. And I think we're going to see that really early here during the off season, during mini camp, and what they're doing, how they're approaching stuff. But one of the major things that we're kind of looking at in mini camp, and I've seen people ask me this. Murk asks, what do we expect our starting five to look like? The Ben Johnson was kind of asked about this on Saturday, and he basically said, "Listen, we're going to take the weekend. We're going to come back to Hallis, and we're starting from scratch at this point. It seems like. I mean, I'm sure they're not. Obviously, Drew Dahlman is your starting center. Joe Tooney is obviously going to be starting for you. Jonah Jackson's going to be starting for you. But I think especially with Braxton Jones being gone, I think this is the time where you kind of realize, do we want to put Ozzie at right tackle, give him some good opportunities, move Darnell over to left tackle? Do we want Ozzie to try left tackle and keep Darnell at right tackle? Or do we want to give Kieran an opportunity, right? Like actually give him a fair chance since he has a off season, as opposed to, throwing him in the fire against the Vikings on the road. So it's really interesting. And I'm curious to know, like, if you're Ben Johnson, if you're Ryan Poles, knowing that Braxton Jones isn't going to be available until training camp, how are you kind of who's your first unit, I guess, when you kind of get out there for mini camp here in the next month?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it earlier, a couple podcasts ago, about the possibility of moving Darnell right to left tackle. And I still think it's not broke, leave it alone. But if Trapillo is going to be better at right tackle, and if he needs to play, like if they figure out he can't play left tackle, then now maybe you got to think about this a little more seriously, because I don't know if they're going to bring in. I don't know who's out there they can bring in to compete for a left tackle spot. So
Yeah, I mean,
even
maybe you'll
so,
get like a post-June cut or something like
right,
that. But like, I
right,
mean, I don't know
right.
what you're going to get at this point.
But even so, right? I mean, you got to be prepared. What if Braxton Jones gets another injury? Or not? Then what? Are you going to put Ozzie Trapillo in at left tackle for the season opener and
Right.
leave Darnell? They have to figure that one out. I don't think there's anyone on the roster currently that can you step in there and play left tackle if Braxton Jones can't. But like you said, Michael, maybe this summer. I mean, and even early in camp, you see guys getting cut, whatever, and there will be some of that going around the league now after the draft, and every team's going to say, one example being, we picked up 2 running backs and maybe we're going to cut that guy now. And actually now we have more DNs than we realized. So maybe this guy we kind of like, we really don't want to cut him, but we just drafted 2 DNs. So we're going to cut this guy, maybe a
Right.
veteran guy. So, I mean, that's going to happen with every team in the league. So we'll see what shakes out from that. But if everyone's healthy and the roster is as it is now, we know what the starting 5 up front is going to look like.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, with the guys that you do have right now, I'm of the mindset. It's hard with Ozzie because I feel like Ozzie, he was an all ACC player at right tackle, right? And from what you've heard, it seems like he could have, not to diminish what the ACC is, but obviously I know everyone's kind of like Big Ten, SEC, and then the other Power 4 schools. But it sounds like Ozzie very well could have gone to another school who was offering him more NIL, but he obviously had a close bond with Boston College. Obviously, his dad, who died at a young age, he played for Boston College. That's a very special place to him. So I don't think that should really diminish a lot of people on Ozzie and just what the competition that he's placed or anything like that. But he played it at a high level for 2 years at right tackle, and then he started his career at left tackle. So you basically have Darnell Wright and Ozzie, who both have played left and right tackle split wise. Both of them did better at it at right tackle than they did left tackle. So, um, you know, I will be interested to see what they end up doing. I think right now I would throw Ozzie in at left tackle just to see how he does, and then keep Darnell at right. And then if it doesn't work out, or if you notice maybe Kieran's doing the better job, or maybe Ozzie's just struggling with that, maybe you do move him, you switch him and Darnell. You have Darnell at left and then Ozzie at right. I think the biggest thing is at this point, you need to do this now, and then whatever you end up deciding has to stick that way throughout all of training camp. You need this guy, you need everyone to be on the same page. You need to know everyone's like instincts upon each other. Everyone knows how the other's thinking, and they have good communication. You can't go into this, like you mentioned, Joe, throw an Ozzie in there like a week before the season. Like you really need to have a good, solid communication moving forward. Some guys chiming in here. You had CJ saying that he's interested in Darnell moving to left tackle. We'll see how that goes. Rick asking about that as well. Some other comments as well. But yeah, I see CJ asking, do you move Joe Tooney over to left tackle and have Ryan Bates at left guard? I think Joe Thuney moved over just because it was an emergency situation, which honestly he played it at a really good level. But I think you keep the All Pro guy at left guard, and then you keep him, and then you just keep as much as solid as much as possible, and then figure out your tackle spots. I feel like the guards in the center at this point are pretty set forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, but Amagaji is really the wild card in all this. Can he
Yeah,
play? I mean, he's got to be he's got to be better this year, and he's got to be able to contribute more. Otherwise, although I say 3 years to grade a draft, let's start labeling him a bust then, because as a third rounder, this is not a fifth or sixth guy. You're thinking hopefully he's Charles Leno Jr. or the next Braxton Jones. Third round pick. He has to play and contribute this year. But if he can't, whether he's not strong enough or whatever reason, that's a bad look. That's a bad look, because let's say he is better, and let's say he's capable, and maybe he's not an all-pro caliber player, but he's serviceable, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Charles Leno Jr. played 10 years in the league. He was never great, but he showed up every day, and he was consistent. That's fine. You can make a lot of money in this league doing that, and teams will like you, and you will get work. But Amagaji, we got to see a little more from him this year, because and I know they drafted him basically. They knew he was a project a little bit, but
yeah.
you got to see more here in year two. Bottom line.
And I think you see everyone's going to get an opportunity at this point, and that's
Yep.
something that Ben Johnson made clear. Like you could see maybe, all right, maybe you have Darnell or Ozzie out at left tackle to start things off, but that doesn't mean they're going to get all the reps. The reps are going to be there, obviously, with Braxton Jones's injury, and Kieran will get his opportunity. He's healthy for as much as we know. He's had a full off season to gain muscle, gain weight. From people liked what they saw from him last year based on what he was able to do. But obviously, the circumstances were not great, and quite honestly, I don't think it was really fair to throw him in Minnesota in his first game action after only playing in not only, but like after playing in the Ivy League and that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
a lot of opportunities to look forward to. That's the biggest thing that we kind of got here. Something that I wanted to hit on, Joe, before we say goodbye to everyone. It's become clear to me, and I'm actually going to have a story out about this probably in about an hour, probably not too long after we're done with this live stream. But at this point, it feels like the table is set for Caleb Williams, right? He's got his playmakers. The offensive line is revamped. You got one of the best play callers in the league. At this point, it really feels like Caleb Williams needs to take that next step that we all expect him to, because at this point, it doesn't feel like there are too many excuses left.
No, absolutely. And look, I mean, you could have 10 more weapons. You could have 4 deep at every wide receiver position. Ultimately, when the ball is snapped, you got to be able to block it. And he's got to be able to pick up the read, and not hold on to the ball. Because otherwise, then you just made all those 5 weapons or 6 weapons, however many you want to count. It's moot, right? So he's got to be better. Not that I think nationally he gets more of a bad rep. I think us in Chicago saw certainly the potential there. Could have won could have had more than a couple of last minute or fourth quarter, game winning drives under his belt, and for various reasons they blew it. So I think he was good, not great. We know he's got more in him, but it is on his shoulders. Funny thing, Michael, during the draft, as Shador kept sliding and kept sliding and kept sliding. At one point, as a fan, I'm thinking, at this point, Bears, just take Shador Sanders. They talk about adding competition at every position. What about the quarterback? I mean, if Caleb Williams is bad, or let's just say he gets hurt. Well, if he gets hurt early, they'd probably bring in a veteran quarterback. That quarterback isn't on the roster right now. Maybe it's Kirk Cousins or something. They'd probably go that route. I don't think they're handing the keys to Tyson Bagent, saying, here's all your show dogs. You go, walk them all and
you don't
figure
believe
it
in
out.
Case Keenum?
I don't think they would do, or Case Keenum. Right? They can't do that. But so there's competition at pretty much every position. Good idea. I like the theory. What about quarterback? And I'm not saying Caleb's overrated. He's going to be a bust like every other quarterback that's come through this city in the last 50 years. But it is the pressure is on him. But everything you've seen from him and heard from him is he embraces that and he wants to be coached up. He has said that. So as long as he's what he's capable of, he doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers right now, or Aaron Rodgers in his prime. But he's got to be good, and they've got to block it. Because if that left tackle position is a problem, or one of those interior linemen that they just signed, for whatever reason, they go down with an injury, and then we're back to the Ryan Bates and, the Bill Murrays, as I mentioned the last time, and they can't block it again. Here we go again. Because you're going to be five. Talk about guys being unhappy they're not getting the ball. Look out then, because no one's getting the ball because they can't block it up still.
And I think that kind of goes into why you see Loveland on this team, why you see Luther Burden on this team, where I think the Bears know, and they haven't said that this is just me, kind of putting together, X and Y, but I've kind of gotten the impression that maybe they do know it'll take a little time for this offensive line to gel. So they gave Caleb Williams quick guys, 2-yard slants here, 3-yard slants here, guys that he can throw to really quickly. Because Ryan Poles, in my story, he talks about, how getting the completion rate for a quarterback is the best way to get his confidence up. That's how you kind of get him going. And how do you do that? You get a 3-yard slant to Luther Burden, who takes it for 10 yards, and you got a first down. You throw it over to Loveland, who's being covered by a linebacker who can't keep up with him, and you get a nice 15-yard pass. Or even like the smaller stuff, right? Like a little dump off to DeAndre Swift, and he gets you 5 yards. All of that stuff matters when you're developing the confidence of an NFL quarterback. And it's really become clear on top of the offensive line stuff that they've done, that these playmakers that they're surrounding him with, that they're there to kind of help him gain that confidence for him to eventually become that top quarterback. And I'm really interested to see what this offense looks like, especially in, I know it's funny to start breaking down or looking forward to game one, but in game 1, 2, and 3, is the offense really simplistic and you're just throwing little dump passes, little slant passes, and kind of developing confidence as the season kind of goes along? Because I think that's going to be a major thing for Caleb if he wants to take that major step that a lot of people expect him to.
Yeah, it's going to take time, like you said, even with all the weapons they have. And maybe you talk about guys, if you're not getting the ball, you got to be able to block. Well, you're really going to need to block well if you're having some issues still on the offensive line. So that's one way to offset it. The other thing, how do you not get sacked? Get rid of the ball in less than 3 seconds as a quarterback, right?
And that's a Caleb thing, right?
Yeah, that'll drive defenses nuts, because how come you're not sacking the quarterback? Because the quarterback's getting rid of the ball in 3 seconds. So we can't have any of these 5, 6, 7, dropbacks where he's looking forever. I mean, someone's going to be open with that group. Like you said, Michael, someone's going to be open. So now it's up to Caleb to go do Caleb things, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what does that look like, right, in the next coming months. I know we didn't touch on this. I want to touch this on this like 5 minutes before we say goodbye. I know I already said we're going to say goodbye, but I realized we didn't talk about this. The defense at this point, where are you at? I mean, obviously they added Shamar Turner as a defensive tackle. He's played edge So maybe the Bears start him off
Mhm.
at edge because he has that experience. And listen, the biggest thing I learned about the Bears defense this weekend is that Dennis Allen loves long, tall, fast, athletic athletes.
Yep.
And I kind of did like the process of getting Zay Frazier, where Al Harris reached out to Poles a month ago and was like, "Hey, this guy at UTSA, he's got great traits. He maybe hasn't played a lot, but we can develop him."
Yep.
I feel like I like hearing that a lot. If your coaches are
Me
going to
too.
your personnel people and they're saying, "Hey, we could do a lot with that," like that is great to kind of have that communication between the coaching staff and the personnel people. But where do you feel like this defense is? Is it pretty much you're still wondering about that edge rusher? Because secondary, I feel like you feel good. Linebackers, you feel good. It's just who's going to pressure the quarterback opposite Montez Sweat, and I feel like that still remains a major question for me.
Yeah, and I think the ability they have to be better at stopping the run. I think last year they were pretty good at that early on, but then Big Billings went out, Jaquan went
Yeah.
out, and all of a sudden, like that hole up the middle was pretty easy to get through for opposing offenses. So I want to see it. And look, right, you got to, if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles starting 22, right? 11 offense, 11 defense.
Yeah, yeah.
Not every guy was drafted in the first or second round.
No.
If you look at the
Most
Chiefs,
aren't, yeah.
pardon?
Most great players aren't all first rounders.
Exactly. So that's where you got to find the other guys, whether they be the Zay Fraziers or the other guys or the Luke Newmans or whatever. You got to be able to develop those guys and have those guys be impact players. I keep saying it. Those third, fourth, fifth, sixth round guys. They've got to be able to contribute. So the defense, obviously, oddly for me anyway, I guess the run defense was more disturbing at the end of the season than the pass rush. And Montez Sweat, we keep saying they got to get some of the compliment Montez Sweat. He's got to be better too, because I don't know
Sure.
how hurt he was last year, but he wasn't as good as when they brought him in 23, mid season. So he's got to be better too. And a lot is on Jaquan Brister. I hope he's healthy and he can play at least 14, 15 games, because if he can, I feel a lot better about the defense. But if he's got more concussion issues, let's hope not, because that's horrible for any athlete, any person to have to go through. If he's good, I'm a little more excited about the defense.
Yeah, and Rick kind of brings up a point that Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson have talked about. Like it seems like they're banking on pressure up the middle, more on the edge. Let's hope the defensive tackle helps Montez Sweat from getting double teamed. I mean, that's been the biggest thing. You mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles. Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson talk about the Philadelphia Eagles a lot. The Bears are essentially saying we need to get pressure up the middle, and that'll really help Montez Sweat and whoever's opposite of him. Because if you don't have to double team a guy up the middle, you can easily focus on the edge, right? So
Exactly.
that will be Andrew Billings. Obviously, he was a big stopper. Grady Jarrett, I know he's older, but he'll make a big impact as well.
Yep.
And it's Gervon Dexter taking that next step, right? Like he showed good stuff at the beginning of last season, kind of slowed down a little bit later during the sophomore year. He needs to continue that. So, and you got Shamar Turner, who plays with the violence that is kind of fun. Like he talks
Yes.
about being violent and knowing what the line is, and he says, like, listen, that's how I play. Like I go on the field, I want to kill you. That's basically what he wants to do. Obviously not literally, but football wise, he wants to kill you. But it seems like they've really focused on the inside, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens, because if you're not getting a pass rush, listen, you can be scoring 37 points a game, but if you're giving up 40, that really won't really help you much in the wins and losses.
Yeah, I mean, get off the field, for crying out loud, right? A lot of times, the Bears were behind the eight ball when Caleb, got under center, because the defense had just been on the field for 15 snaps. Like, get off the field, get the ball to your offense, and then if they fail, stop, force another 3 and out. Get off the field, let this offense do its thing. But they've got to do that, and they got to be able to stop the run. And getting back to Shamar Turner about the violence, this was a little before you weren't here, Michael. But remember Pernell McPhee, who had a pretty good career in the NFL. Yeah. I don't know if he's still playing, but he played for the Bears a few years ago. And when they assigned him in the offseason, they asked, what's your style of play? And one of the best one-word quotes: violent. He was a fun player. He just had injury problems, or he could have been. Again, he actually played quite a bit in the league. He may still might be playing, but anyway, Pernell McPhee, he was a fun player, violent.
Yeah.
That was his style of play. And you know what, Shamar Turner, some of those guys, if they cross the line every now and then, you know what, you live and die by that. I'm fine with it. Just don't take a roughing the quarterback penalty, inside the 10 after you stop them.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't do any of that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things is I feel like from this class, we got a lot of different fun personalities. You got Shamar Turner, who obviously was really cool. And obviously it's, this weekend's really cool because obviously a lot of guys, their dreams come true. They obviously are making it to the NFL. And it's a really fun weekend, obviously, for the Bears and Bears fans to look forward to, but obviously for these players as they get to realize their dreams of being NFL players and trying to become stars. But that is everything that we've got for this episode of the Bears Insider Podcast. Thank you as always for joining us. Thank you to all our listeners and all the comments. Always appreciate you guys, and always appreciate you coming out, giving us your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Like I said, make sure you subscribe. We're available anywhere you listen to podcasts, and make sure you like this stream. That's the best way to kind of support us, help grow our brand, and also help make sure that anytime we are coming up and doing a live stream, that's the best way to kind of help that we're going to be talking. Bears rookie mini camp is next weekend, Mother's Day weekend. Then we'll have some OTAs over the next couple months. We'll get mini camp and then we'll have break. But Bears content does not start. We'll keep you guys informed the next time we'll be talking. Maybe we'll talk a little bit around rookie mini camp just to kind of see what the rookies are saying and what the plans are. But thanks so much for joining us this time, guys, and we will talk to you guys down the road.